Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to the Kendo Show. So today I am here to talk to you about Tsubazeriai. Now, I've done a video in the past about Tsubazeriai, I know, and talking about Hikiwaza and stuff like that, but it was quite a while ago now. I've done that maybe 6 or 7 years ago even. So I wanted to sort of do an updated version because quite a bit has changed. So we're going to talk about Tsubazeriai. This video is focused more on Tsubazeriai. It's more focused on Tsubazeriai than it is Hikiwaza, all right? I'll do another video at a later date talking about different ways you can make effective Hikiwaza, but what I want to talk about today mainly is how to do Tsubazeriai correctly, and then how to navigate the rules properly to avoid a penalty, a hand soccer, and especially taking into consideration what are currently being referred to as the provisional rules. Okay, so these are obviously the new rules that were sort of introduced a couple of years ago. I think it was around 2020. Based on sort of world events, and also based on the sort of trends in Shiai at the time, to sort of combat some of those things. So we're going to talk about that a bit, and yeah, hopefully it'll all become a little bit clearer. Before we do though, before we jump into it, don't forget the YouTube magic, like, share, subscribe, send out the YouTube ninja robots to help grow the Kendo population. All you have to do is like, share, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and then the final thing is write a little comment in there using the word Kendo. What a great Kendo video, or something like that, and then YouTube sends out a crack team of ninjas, robot ninjas, to go and find people who are about to start Kendo, and it grows the Kendo population. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. We've pretty much come to that conclusion. We haven't had it confirmed. I'm pretty sure that is the case. More importantly than that, though, is shop at KendoStar.com. That is the best way you can support this channel. If you like this video, if you like the other videos that I do, whether it's this, whether it's Kendo Rant, whether it's the feedback videos, all the other stuff that I do, you can support my efforts by shopping at KendoStar.com. KendoStar.com is the best Kendo equipment website in the history and future of the human race. Now, of course, I would say that because I own the place, but it's true. And everyone agrees with me. You get the best possible equipment. You get fantastic, unbeatable, amazing service. We're the best at what we do. I know there's sort of wannabes popping up left, right, and centre and stuff, drop shipping your stuff from the other side of the world, or standing as middlemen, or whatever. All right. But look, we're long established, our own specific brand, specifically for the international Kendo community. That's why we were set up. We were set up with the goal of helping and increasing the international Kendo community. And you support the channel at the same time. This channel is completely free. Of course, we don't charge you any subscription fees. We don't charge you for subtitles or any of that stuff. Yeah. So support us by shopping at KendoStar.com. Everyone's a winner, baby. That's the truth, as the ancient Japanese proverb goes. So we're going to look at this video, okay? I'm following the same sort of pattern as I've done with the recent sort of instructional content that I've done. We're going to look at some footage that I've already put together. Hopefully it won't be too long, but we're going to talk about how to do Tsubazeriai, how not to do Tsubazeriai, how to what constitutes the hand socced or the penalty in Tsubazeriai, and what is sometimes sort of confused in areas where people might get a bit confused around whether that's allowed or not, or whether that's correct or not. Okay, so we'll get into the video and let's have a look. Okay, so here we are. Here's the footage that I've put together. The way this is going to work, we're going to watch the examples, and then I'll sort of explain. All right, so let's look at the examples first. We've got first we're looking at the correct Tsubazeriai, okay? Correct way to do Tsubazeriai. Yeah! I'm on the left. My wonderful daughter Miyabi is helping me. in this video. Okay, so this is the correct way to do Tsubazeriai. Okay, now I've intentionally, just to be clear before we go further, I've intentionally done this as a sort of longer clip, all right, to show you how to do the Tsubazeriai action. This is just ignore for a minute any sort of thing about like the length of time we spend there. All right, we'll talk about that later because the length of time we're in Tsubazeriai here is longer than you should be. But it's just I'm just using this to show you how to do the Tsubazeriai. Okay, so if we pause it on this frame here. Essentially, the important part is my tsuba and her tsuba are essentially touching the shinai across this way, not completely vertical, slightly diagonal, and very, very importantly, this is super importantly, if you want to learn to do Tsubazeriai well, is can you see there's space between my hands and my body? Same in her case, all right? There's space here. And this is about the same amount of space I have when I'm in my regular chudan. I just lifted my hands up to meet in Tsubazeriai position, okay? So this allows me space to work, all right? Now I've got it from a different angle. You can see my wonderful Kenpro Shinai bag there in the corner. Love that Shinai bag. Okay, so as you can see, what we're essentially doing here, I'll just show you quickly, is we're kind of competing for the center line as well, or looking for the chance to make the opportunity. Tsubazeriai means competing at the tsuba, okay? So that's literally what's happening here, okay? So we're using the tsuba and this part of our shinai this time to control and try to take the center, okay? And that's how we do it, okay? Now, here's some examples of incorrect Tsubazeriai, and these are really, really common. So this is a very common example of incorrect Tsubazeriai, okay? Where there's no space between the hands and the body, the tsuba aren't really touching, and it's just the fists touching together, okay? Just the fists touching together. Okay, this is incorrect. This is incorrect because it's not effective. Okay, it's not. When I say it's incorrect, you're not going to get penalised for this. You'll get penalised if your hand goes on top of their tsuba and starts pushing down from the top. That's a bit different. But if in this position, it's not a penalty, but it's just not effective Tsubazeriai. Okay, you can't do the waza from here, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, another bad example. So this sort of thing here, where I'm refusing to engage in the Tsubazeriai. Okay, I'm refusing to engage in the Tsubazeriai, yeah? This could be considered a penalty because I'm kind of trying to gain an unfair advantage. I'm trying to push from above. I'm sort of touching a shinai sometimes. But what I am definitely doing is I'm not trying to engage with Tsubazeriai, okay? If we watch it one more time, you can see I'm not trying to do Tsubazeriai, all right? If you do this in the match, the referees are probably going to stop you and at least tell you to stop messing around and to do Tsubazeriai properly. And then this example is the same sort of thing. You often see this in quite low-level matches. After hitting, one player doesn't really know how to sort of get out of this position. And again, not engaging in the Tsubazeriai, okay? So let's talk about the hitting position, all right? The hitting position. I mentioned about the space in my hands and how important that is. So as you can see, I'm keeping this space here, all right? My tsuba is against hers, and that's going to allow me to make the easy, clean hikimen waza, all right? Okay, I can hit very easily because I have the space to work with here. Okay, I have the space to work with here, yeah? I can easily make the accurate strike for a good hikimen. Okay, so that's why it's super, super important that you keep that space between your body and your hands, okay? Here's an incorrect example, all right? Here's what happens if you remember this incorrect example. You don't have this space here. You do this fist-to-fist Tsubazeriai. You can't hit, okay? You just can't make a strike, yeah? So let's talk about some incorrect actions during Tsubazeriai, things you're not allowed to do or just are wrong, all right? So here, I'm pressing my shinai against her neck, all right? I'm pressing my shinai against her neck. You can see that, yeah? This is a penalty. This is hansoku, all right? You're not allowed to do this. Here again, I'm not engaging Tsubazeriai, and I'm just trying to gain an unfair advantage by pushing her shinai down. All right, this will likely result in the hansoku as well. Especially, I'm often touching her shinai as well, right? Yeah. So this is part of the provisional rules. Of the provisional rules, I think this is the most likely to, at some stage, go away. But maybe it'll maintain. I think the others are likely to stay. But you're no longer allowed to do hase. Okay, you're not allowed to shout "yeah" from the Tsubazeriai. You used to be able to. So if you go and watch some old Kendo videos, you'll see people doing it. You're not allowed to do it anymore. All right, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You can say "men kote don do" when you do the hikiwaza. Yeah, man, you can do, that's okay. But you're not allowed to come to Tsubazeriai and go, yeah, like this, okay? Now, the procedure for this, first you get a warning, and if you keep doing it, then you get a hansoku, all right? Now, Shimpan take into consideration, especially, as I say, it used to be normal to do the hase there, so, you know, sometimes it's still a habit for a lot of people. So this Shimpan will take into consideration if you're doing it on purpose, or if you know. But so they'll usually give you fair warning, and if you keep doing it, bam, hansoku. All right. So this is called gyaku kosa, okay, gyaku kosa, where I'm hooking the shinai on the other side, or trying to do Tsubazeriai from the reverse side like this, okay, with the shinai crossed in the reverse way. Okay, so hooking and just intentionally trying to do gyaku kosa, the opposite crossing, is also a penalty. Okay, so it will result in the hansoku. All right, like this. I'm not trying to do proper Tsubazeriai. I'm trying to avoid it and trying to do the gyaku kosa, called gyaku kosa. This action. All right. I'll show you this. This is so you can see from the opposite angle, like this. Okay, you see how the shinai are crossed on the opposite sides, like this. Okay. So if I am always trying to do this to avoid, like many people do this sometimes to try to avoid receiving the hikiwaza. All right. So people who are concerned about receiving the hikiwaza will try to do this to hopefully make it more difficult for the opponent to strike the hikiwaza. But if you do this like intentionally all the time during the shiai, then this will result in the hansoku. All right. As you can see, I'm making an active effort to do gyaku kosa. All right, to put my shinai on that side and refusing to engage in correct Tsubazeriai. So this, of course, is not allowed, where I'm grasping the shinai under my arm. Okay? Yeah? This too will likely get you the hansoku. And here, I'm just trying to we had some fun filming this. Just trying to bash the shinai out of the hands. You see this often, maybe when one player has, let's say she already has received the hansoku for whatever reason. So maybe I'll try and get a point by making her do another. And obviously it's the hansoku to drop your shinai, right? So, but here I'm just making a concentrated effort to only bash the shinai out of her hand. And in that case, it's hansoku for the other side generally. All right, it's hansoku for the other side because I'm not trying to do the fair shiai. I'm just trying to bash the shinai out of her hands, and that's not kendo. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so next I'd like to look at some easily confused points. Okay, so based on what we just looked at, there's some areas of confusion because what people sometimes tend to do, especially when they start to do shimpan and they learn some of these things that we just talked about, there is a bit of a tendency to sort of over apply them as well. So let's look at some situations that are easily confused, okay? Okay, so this is allowed. All right, this is allowed. Okay, because the act of striking the shinai is part of my the sort of back and forth of our shiai. All right, and as you can see, I attempted a strike after it. Now, attempting the strike isn't necessarily important. Okay, I don't necessarily have to make a strike afterwards either, so don't get confused on that. I've just done it on here to easily illustrate it. So in this situation, of course, this would either be ippon for my men, or if it's not ippon, it would at least be a hansoku for dropping the shinai. Okay, because this all happened fairly. Okay, now maybe I would do this as well, and still maybe I wouldn't make the strike. That's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean it's, you know, that's not the same as the example I showed before, where my sole and only concentration and intention is to bash the shinai down out of their hands. That's different, all right? So whether it's, the shimpan have to make the judgment as to whether it's part of the fair back and forth of the match, could be connected to the waza, or has the intention of participating in the kendo shiai, or it's just somebody trying to sort of game the rules, try to bash the shinai out of their hands as much as they can, so that they can apply the hansoku to the other person. Okay. So this situation, this is not the hansoku. This is either the main ippon or the hansoku for the person that dropped the shinai. Okay. So it's easily confused. Okay. Next one. Okay, so we talked about pushing on the neck with the shinai, all right? Pushing on the neck with the shinai. Now, before, in the previous example, I was pushing on her neck throughout the Tsubazeriai, right? It was constant throughout the Tsubazeriai. This is different. This is kuzushi, okay? It's called kuzushi waza, okay? Where you use the shinai to break their posture and then make a strike. This is allowed, all right? This is not the same, okay? This is not the same, okay? So I use it as a part of creating a chance for the waza. And again, it's not that I have to make a hit afterwards. Maybe I'll do this and there's not the chance to hit. Maybe there won't be the chance to hit, so I won't hit. But it's clear that it's part of the back and forth of the shiai, rather than just me trying to put extra weight on them to, you know, wear them out or tire them out, or to defend from receiving hikiwaza. Okay, so this kind of interaction is okay. Okay, this is okay. Okay. What's next? Okay, this is a good one. Okay, so this time I hit, and because of the dynamics of my kote strike, I end up in the gyaku kosa position. All right, but after my waza is complete, I revert to the Tsubazeriai. This is okay. This is okay, because I'm not trying to, it's not, if you do, the instant you do gyaku kosa, the opposite crossing of the shinai, it's hansoku. It's not that. It's that before I wasn't willing to engage in normal Tsubazeriai, and I was constantly trying to revert to gyaku kosa. This time I found myself in gyaku kosa, so revert to the normal Tsubazeriai. Okay, this is okay. This is allowed. It's okay. And here's another example. So this time, I find myself in the gyaku kosa, but instead of reverting to Tsubazeriai, instead I immediately make the strike from the gyaku kosa. All right, this is quite a useful technique, because sometimes when you find yourself here, the opponent will push against the shinai this way, so it gives you the chance to make this kind of mawashi men. Okay, like this. Okay, this is okay. This is okay, because again, I'm not spending the time in Tsubazeriai trying only to do the gyaku kosa. All right, I found myself there, and then I used it as a chance to make a strike. That's okay. That's allowed. Okay, that's allowed. It's kind of natural, right? All right, but it's not me trying to game the Tsubazeriai. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about separating from Tsubazeriai. Now, this is the contentious point, right? Because this is where it's become a little bit grey, where it's become a little bit difficult to follow with the introduction of the provisional rules. I think these rules are probably here to stay. I don't know. Maybe in 5 years we'll be having a different conversation. I don't know. But for the time being, we're going to talk about how we're supposed to separate from Tsubazeriai. Okay. Now I'm going to talk. This is my experience. I'm just going to preface this because this is my experience as someone who has got a reasonable amount of experience as a shimpan, as a referee. I was very lucky enough to be one of the referees selected to referee at the European Kendo Championships last year, and I also was the official interpreter for the European zone of the World Championships selection seminar for shimpan. So I've had quite a lot of access to the high-level senseis teaching the high-level seminars on this exact topic. All right, now what I'm presenting to you is my interpretation of what was taught at those seminars. All right, and what I've seen sort of elsewhere as well. Now, the one thing I'm just going to say before we really delve into this, because it always comes up, is you've got to remember it's all based on the interpretation of the shimpan. Okay, it's all based on the interpretation of the shimpan, and mainly the individual shushin, especially if you start watching shiai in Japan. All right. Because I'm sure you'll watch this and then you'll come back, you know, there might be comments, whatever, say, oh, well, I watched the shiai from last week that was in Japan and they didn't do that, they did this. Well, that doesn't really mean anything. What that means is that the shimpan in charge of that specific match chose to interpret it in that way. Okay? Whether that's right or wrong, it's not really the point. What I'm presenting to you is what the Zenkennen and the FIK, by extension, are presenting at their seminars that I've been in attendance at. All right. Now, in fairness, I haven't been to the latest one because I'm not a selected shimpan for the WKC. So I didn't go to the one they held in Japan recently, but I did go to the one before that in August in here in the UK. And again, it's just my understanding of it. All right. But try not to look at it because, you know, I get it a lot. Hang on, I just watched this shiai from Japan and they didn't separate like you said. They separated like you said not to. So does that mean you know, well, it just means that those shimpan didn't necessarily think that was an issue, or it might even be something that, you know, that the shimpan aren't even able to control. Yeah, I think the biggest grey area comes about when you're allowed to do the hikiwaza. So let's have a look. All right. So we come to Tsubazeriai and we separate in this way. Okay, this is how we're supposed to do it. Okay, now the guidance the ZNKR, the All Japan Kendo Federation, give is that the time you're now allowed to spend in Tsubazeriai is the duration of one breath. Okay, one breath. And it's intentionally vague. Okay, it's intentionally vague. Because it's up to the judgment of the shimpan as to whether the players are trying to resolve the Tsubazeriai either by separating or striking in sort of good timing, good order, or they're trying to extend it in order to maybe rest or to waste time on the clock. So it's intentionally vague, but the idea is you come into Tsubazeriai, you look for a chance, there isn't one, so you separate, or you look for a chance and you take it. You don't spend ages fighting from there, okay? So they've given this guidance of one breath. Now, when they brought that outside of Japan to help, because that concept of one breath, it's like a reasonably common measurement in Japanese explanations, but we don't really use that in English so much. So as they brought that abroad, and I think they put this in the Japanese too, they've put roughly 3 seconds. Roughly 3 seconds. Okay. 1, 2, 3, separate. Okay. Now, some people might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, this is too long. Yeah? And other people might say 1, 2. Oh, that was only 2 seconds. Okay, so no one's got a stopwatch, all right? It's not, so here's where, and I think it's good that they put this sort of example of about 3 seconds in, but I think there is a tendency for us to sort of overinterpret that a bit too strictly. All right, it's not digital. Yeah, it's not like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. It's not like that. All right, it's down to the shimpan's judgment. Is what's happening fair or not fair? Now that's something that the senseis have always been super keen to stress, is that the first part of the rule says the point of this is to keep everything fair. So is it happening in the spirit of fairness, or is it happening because one side is trying to game or not? All right. As a shimpan, it's not your job to prove how well you know the rules or how good you are in applying the rules. It's just to do it, all right, and make sure the shiai operates fairly. So, you know, it's difficult because I know from my own experience of being a shimpan at a high level like that, you want to make sure you do it properly. So there's a bit of a tendency to over apply it. But I think, you know, the idea is that it's supposed to be about 3 seconds, all right? And one thing that they said very clearly is when you separate, you should separate, when a separation happens, it should be mutual and using each other's sort of power or mutual power, sort of slight push to separate smoothly in a fluid motion. Okay, no chance, so separate, okay? Now, another one that you see, another version of this that you see, I think the previous one is more like the ideal, where you just separate this way. But when it comes to real life, it doesn't always pan out like that. So it might look a little bit more sort of like this in sort of a couple of steps. So maybe 1, 2, okay? I think this is more common in Japan at the moment. Not saying whether that's right or wrong, but there's a sort of initial step and then another step. And it might take longer to take that second step sometimes. That's, you know, that's not necessarily right or wrong either, okay? My personal advice would be to separate as quickly as you possibly can, okay? Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of how incorrect ways to separate, okay? Incorrect ways to separate. Yeah! So I've put little icons in here, all right? This is incorrect, all right? Incorrect means you shouldn't do it. It's not tactically a good idea to do it, but it doesn't mean it's a penalty, all right? So it's not a penalty to do this. Okay, where you separate really slowly. In fact, some people do even slower, where they sort of stop here for a minute and then, or a second or so, and then separate this way, all right? So it should be smooth. Yeah, whether it's 1 or 1, 2, it should be smooth, not like this, okay? Probably the example I gave is a little bit fast even compared to what you often see, but there you go. I think you get the idea. Okay, next example. So we talked about the one breath. This time we're longer. We're spending too long there, all right? This is a penalty, okay? All right, this is much longer, right? This is much longer than one breath. And in this case, this is super rare. Hardly ever happens, right? This is super rare where, especially now, right, where both sides are just spending the time there. In this case, it's a penalty to both sides, but it's super, super rare, okay? Don't see it very often, okay? Also, if you don't separate, this is going to be a hand sock, okay? So here you see how she went back, but I stayed where I was. Okay, this is the hand socker for me. Okay, it's the hand socker for me. I have to separate as well. And in this one, this is stepping forward. So as she separates, I step forward and I don't even let her get to the far distance. Because when you separate, sorry, I should have said this a bit earlier, but in the correct examples, yeah, you have to separate to far distance, all right? Now, I was probably a bit eager in this video, but yeah, you got to separate to the far distance. Not far distance, but the far distance, all right? You can be a bit closer than we are here. This is, I think, because we're concentrating on showing it properly, we're probably a little bit more eager than we would be in an actual CI, but it has to be so the shinai are no longer touching together, all right? So, which one's this one? This is the, okay, so we've done this one already. But this one, where I step forward, so you see, she starts to separate, but I step forward here, okay? This is a clear hand socker for me, okay? Clear hand socker for me. And then these days, they don't generally give a warning, they just give the hand socker out, all right? They'll just penalty straight off, all right? The Shinban will usually explain what the penalty's for, but it will be for, you know, it's usually straight away, the penalty. And this is also one where I'm avoiding separating. So I'm not even letting her try to separate. You see how I move forward even in the Tsubazeriai there? And this is obviously after the 3 seconds have passed. Yeah, after the 3 seconds have passed. I don't have to let her separate within the 3 seconds straight away because it has to be, this is a key point, we'll talk about it more in a minute, but it has to be mutual. All right, it has to be mutual, the separation, not just one side. All right, but let's say 3 seconds have passed and I'm not letting her go. All right. This time, as we separate, I'm pushing down on the shinai. This is not allowed and often will result in the hand socker, all right? Now, if you're separating smoothly, you won't have a chance to do this, okay? But pushing down on the shinai like this is not allowed, or hitting it down as well, like this, okay? Or twisting it, doing some kind of maki. It's not allowed, like this, as you separate. Most of these actions, one more time, let's have a quick look. All right, are going to get you a penalty. All right, pushing down from the top, bashing the shinai away, hitting the shinai away, like this, or twisting the shinai. Okay, you don't need to do any of these. These can get you the penalty. All right. Next one is releasing the kamae. Now, you see the lighting's changed. I forgot to film this one, so we had to go back and film it again on a different day. So here, as a separate, this is a common one. I release the kamae like this. All right, this is not allowed. Okay, got another example. And this will get the hand socker too. Release the kamae like this. Okay, and this is why, because it looks like you're sort of separating, but you're actually not letting separate to the proper distance. This is a super common one, super duper common one, this, where they kind of release the kamae and then don't separate properly, yeah? This is a hand socker for this side, okay? Then excessive defending and wasting time, all right? So you see how I'm making this defensive posture with my hands over my head? Like this, okay? If I do that a lot and I use it just as a way to waste time, I'm not engaging in shoba, all right? It's not the hand socker itself to block this way, all right? It's using this to avoid doing shoba, all right? To avoid doing shoba. As you can see, I'm not trying to make any points. I'm not trying to engage in the shoba. I'm just wasting the time, okay? okay, like this, this will result in the hansoku. All right, this is just me trying to play down the clock. All right, maybe I've already got an ippon, or maybe my team only needs a hikiwake to draw. So I just play down the clock like this. Yeah, this will get me the hansoku. Okay, so when are we allowed to hit hikiwaza? When are we allowed to hit hikiwaza? There's a few times. Okay, so within our 3 seconds, this one's quite early on. 1, 2, and men. This is okay. Of course, immediately is okay. Maybe tai atari, also okay. Yeah? And here's where it becomes grey. All right, here's where it becomes grey. 1, 2, 3, men. And see how here I hit the men as we get to that sort of 3 second point and she starts to separate, but I decide to do waza. And we're in that sort of grey zone as to whether we are in the 3 second zone or out of it. It depends on the shimpan's judgment as to whether that was a fair time to hit or not. If they don't think that that was within the 3 seconds, then they will not judge it as valid. It shouldn't be given as the hansoku, all right? Because I don't think it's an act of unfairness. This is a misjudgment of when they should separate between the two, of that sort of 3 second feeling, right? If the shimpan agree with this side that it was time to separate, shall we say, or feel that the Tsubazeriai was too long before the chance of hikiwaza was there, then they won't award the men. If they feel that this player was just retreating, like in Japanese they would say katteni, just like individually, like selfishly, without any sort of consideration for the other side, just retreating, and this was within the time that it'd be fair to hit, like they, you know, then they might award the ippon. All right. So the way to avoid this is to make sure you separate quickly when it's time to separate, and you keep yourself alert. Okay? This could be ippon, maybe not. This would be an invalid one. Okay, it's invalid, where a mutual separation begins, and then during the mutual separation, I try to make a strike. Okay, now this strike's not really reaching the target anyway, but even if it did, because I started to separate first, this is a mutual separation, and then I hit. I'm not allowed to hit during the mutual separation, and a hit made during the mutual separation will be judged as invalid. Okay, that's what the rules say. It's not a hansoku, it's just not valid. Okay. Now, for it to be hansoku, and this is where there's confusion, there has to be some state of unfairness. Okay. So here I trick her. Okay. We come to Tsubazeriai and say yes, let's separate. And I let her think we're going to separate, and then I use that position to make a strike, okay? This is more likely to be considered hansoku, all right? Because I'm trying to be unfair, all right? Now, this is a very obvious example, but it could be more subtle than that. So the shimpan have to take consideration. Again, we've got a grey zone. We've got a grey zone here, and this is a grey zone not as to whether this is ippon or not. This can't be the ippon, all right? This can't be the ippon, shouldn't be the ippon, I should say. This shouldn't be the ippon because the separation started, all right? Now, the question is whether this is just invalid or whether this should be presented as hansoku. I think most likely outcome with the good shimpan would be this would be considered hansoku, because again, you've sort of tricked the other person, right? You've tricked the other person that you're going to separate, and then you've used that as a chance to make a strike, all right? So I think that is likely to be considered as hansoku rather than like just ignored. But it depends. Now this is a difficult one. Okay, here, now this is where the key phrase is mutual. All right, a separation must be mutual. So we're well within our 3 seconds, and Miyabi here decides she's going to separate. All right, but it's not mutual. It's katteni. All right, it says otagai ni or sogo ni, right? So together, right? Whereas this one is katteni, which is just individually, selfishly, by themselves, no regard. Yeah, she starts to separate, and I'm not starting to separate. This is a valid time to strike. Okay, lots of people get caught out on this because they think. I think there's a misunderstanding that they think if they initiate a separation, the other player is not allowed to hit. You can't use the initiation of a separation to defend yourself from strikes. All right, that wouldn't be fair either. Okay, so the separation from Tsubazeriai has to be mutual. Okay, has to be mutual. So, but it's difficult to judge. All right, so the shimpan have to watch this really carefully. Yeah, this is a valid time to strike. Okay, does that make sense? That makes sense. So let's just recap the correct Tsubazeriai. We basically, we're at the end, so let's have a look at how to do it properly, okay? So we come here, we come to our Tsubazeriai, our Tsuba are competing together on the right side, and our, we've got nice space between our arms and our fists, so we've got the ability and flexibility to strike, all right? We're not crossing on the wrong way. There's no chance to strike, so we mutually separate smoothly and cleanly, okay? That is the correct way to participate in Tsubazeriai if there's no chance for a strike, okay? Nice and smoothly in this way. Okay, so that is everything, all right? Let's just quickly recap, all right? Doing Tsubazeriai properly, not having our fists together, yeah? Not bumping our fists together like this. Yeah, not trying to not engage in Tsubazeriai. This is not correct, all right? But pushing on top of the shinai, stuff like that, okay? Not engaging in Tsubazeriai with our hands over our heads, okay? Keeping a nice space between our fists and our body so that we can easily make a strike nice and simply, all right? Because if our hands are like this, we won't be able to, yeah? Then in terms of incorrect actions, continually pushing on the neck, all right? Not allowed. What else have we got? We've got, again, pushing down from the top, not engaging, not allowing the other person to do Tsubazeriai and trying to practice unfair Tsubazeriai. Like this. What else have we got? Shouting in Tsubazeriai, okay? Hase in Tsubazeriai, not allowed, okay? Doing the continuous reverse position, this one, Gyaku Kosa, all right? Intentionally trying to keep yourself in that position, yeah? Not allowed, like this, yeah? This is not allowed, so don't do that. Next one that's not allowed, trying to hook the shinai under your arm like this, okay? Not allowed, obviously not fair. Or bashing at the shinai like this, okay? Just trying to get them to drop it. Okay, but don't be confused because you are allowed to make a strike as part of your general back and forth. You are allowed to use kuzushi, and you are allowed to momentarily find yourself in Gyaku Kosa as long as you either, as the video shows, revert to the correct Tsubazeriai, or you take the chance to make a strike quickly, okay? In terms of separating, we want to separate nice and smoothly. Okay, in a nice smooth fashion, either like that, or you can do it in a couple of steps as well, like this, that's also fine. But what you don't want to do is step really slowly, okay? Slow, 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 like this. Don't want to spend more than one breath there, not longer than 3 seconds, all right? Or you're going to get penalty, yeah? If you don't separate, like this, only she went back, yeah? It's penalty. This time, when she separates, I step forward. This is a penalty, okay? This time, I'm not letting her separate. Now, again, what's really key here is that this is after the 3 seconds have expired, all right? Pushing down as we separate. Or hitting the shinai away as we separate. All this stuff is not allowed. Okay, twisting the shinai, maki, right, like that, okay? Or releasing your kamae as you separate this way, okay? Like that. or even using that as a way to gain extra distance. Like that. Excessively defending, wasting time. Not allowed. Like this, I'm just defending, wasting time, spending all the time doing this. Not part of engaging in the shoba. All right, I'm not trying to fight. It's a penalty. Our timing of hikiwaza, all right? We're just doing a recap. Okay, within our 3 seconds, no problem, okay? Immediately after meeting with the opponent. Alternatively, maybe after a strike, we can do the tai atari, okay? There's grey areas, all right? Is it time to separate or is it still time to hit? Depends on the judgment of the shimpan, okay? Depends on the judgment of the shimpan. If I separate and then hit during the separation, it's not valid, okay? It's not valid. And if I try to trick her into separating and then hit, that is the penalty, okay? That's a hansoku, not allowed. This one, again, we looked at this one. Just don't do it, but this is either not valid or probably more likely hansoku, but again, it's going to depend on the shimpan. I would argue that it's hansoku. If I was in that sort of shimpan gogi, it would have the gogi, would have to decide, and I would vote for hansoku in this case. But it is difficult to judge because if one side just independently tries to retreat within the 3 seconds, it's still valid to make a strike, okay? Like this, yeah? She decides to separate, but I strike. This is allowed, all right? So you have to have your wits about you whilst you're in Tsubazeriai, okay? And that is all about correct Tsubazeriai. Okay, so that was all about the correct way to do Tsubazeriai, how to properly engage in Tsubazeriai, what not to do, how to avoid getting penalties, and how to make sure that you're in the right position to strike, okay? Today's video, it was only about that. Again, I'll just stress one more time, I know I talked about it earlier in the video, but this is my interpretation of the rules as they are, based on my experience of being a shimpan and also attending some of the FIK shimpan seminars, all right? I believe this is to be the sort of the way it is. Of course, the really key and important thing is it's generally pretty much down to the interpretation of the individual shimpan, all right? So there's no point looking at a video, or even if you have an experience, you go to Shiai and there's this mutual separation and one of them hits and they give the ippon, you know, there's no point turning around to me or to anyone else really and saying, well, hang on, why, Andy, you said that this isn't allowed, but they gave it as ippon. Like, no one can change that. Can't take it back, so there's no point, yeah? Next time, separate faster, or just take it in a way that you can learn, because at the end of the day, it's all down to how the shimpan interpret the rules and the current provisional rules, all right? Now, they might get it wrong, some of them will get it wrong, all right? Everybody does when they do shimpan. You'll know that when you do shimpan yourself. None of us are perfect. And I'm sure that they'll learn as they get more experience as well, all right? But at the end of the day, you can avoid a lot of these situations by engaging in Tsubazeriai correctly and fairly and separating correctly and fairly. And you won't find yourself in too many rough situations if you follow the guidance I've done in this video, all right? I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, shop at KendoStar, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.